Hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and wait just a few moments while participants trickle in. I see now that folks are joining our forum today now. Welcome again. As folks join, if you want to go ahead and start typing in the chat functionality just so that we can see that that is working, maybe where you're coming from. We'll just see where folks are at. We know that we have folks joining us from nationally today. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with housekeeping. I am Allie Casella. I'm here with Doorway to College Foundation. I am one of the co-hosts. I'm going to be kind of stage managing for us today as folks trickle in. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them my way. You'll be on mute by default as a participant, so go ahead and use chat if you have anything that you want to go ahead and put in there. The Q&A box is also open. We have a great panel here today that you can utilize to ask any questions directly to the panelists. We will be checking the Q&A box throughout the whole hour that we have today. Please feel free to utilize that. We'll be checking it periodically. And of course, as always, we will record today's forum and we'll be sure to get that to you afterwards. Our panelists are wonderful today. This is one of our best ones that we've done yet. This is, I think, the fifth time that we've gotten together and a returning crowd for the most part. We have a couple of new faces. I had made mention of the fact my name was Allie Casella. I'm here today with Adam Smith, who is my co-host, and I think I will go ahead and let him introduce myself and then the panelists to introduce themselves.
Great, thanks, Allie. Thank you all for being here. Again, I am Adam Smith. I'm the Director of Community Partnerships and Educational Access for Doorway to College Foundation. Doorway is a national nonprofit foundation, mission-driven, to focus in developing strategic partnerships nationwide to help students not only get to college, but through college. So that is our commitment. We bring together different thought leaders and experts from around the nation to talk about issues that are current events, best practices, and things that affect all of our mutual mission, which is getting students to and through college as quickly, seamlessly, and with the least amount of debt, obviously, as possible. So we have a great panel today. This is the final virtual forum in this series that is planned for the worst, hope for the best. The focus of this webinar today is getting students, currently enrolled college students, through college in a really uncertain time. It couldn't be even more emphasized as to everything that is going on in our country and our world. I think sometimes we forget and we think about all the stuff on our campuses, not understanding that our students are also experiencing all of the unrest, all of the challenges, and those things leach into our campus communities and into the lives of our students every day. So without me talking anymore, or with me not talking anymore, I'd like to introduce our panel, starting with Mary Virginia. Mary Virginia, could you come off mute and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Virginia Ireland. I use she, her pronouns. I work at New York University as a student success specialist and am looking forward to chatting with you all today.
Great, thanks, Mary Virginia. So Mary Virginia is in the heart of the epicenter of all the things that happened with COVID-19 and a very fantastic student population. So she has some great insights and feedback. Jenna?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenna Miller. I work at the University of Iowa. I am the academic coordinator in the Division of World Languages, Literatures, and Cultures. So a lot of course scheduling, and then I'm also the graduate program coordinator there as well.
Awesome, thank you, Jenna. Christine, can you introduce, please?
Hi, everybody. My name is Christine Fabray Rose. I am at the University of Akron, Associate Director with Choose Ohio First. I've been there for 7 years, and my background is in social work.
Thank you, Christine. Mr. Daniel.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Diaz-Nilsson, he, him, his. I currently work at Kent State University in Northeast Ohio. And this is I just finished my 15th year working in higher education around the country. So looking forward to being with y'all.
Thank you, Daniel. We also have some fantastic students on with us today. I'm going to have Shannon Anderson take herself off mute. Shannon, if you could introduce yourself, what institution you attend, what you are currently studying, and if you could talk quickly about some of the biggest concerns you have returning to campus in the fall.
Okay. Hi, I'm Shannon Anderson. I attend the University of Alabama. I forgot what else I was supposed to say about myself, but I guess one thing that I am concerned about is just how the flow of classes is probably going to be and what that's going to look like and how that's going to affect my learning with people being so cautious.
Hey, Shannon, and can you remind everyone your major again, please?
Oh, sorry. My major is Human Development and Family Studies on the pre-med track with minors in Biology and Spanish.
Thank you. I knew that. I needed that pre-med major in there, right? Because we're going to talk a little bit. We also have Amron Primrose as a student. Amron, can you talk a little bit about your institution, where you're from, what you're studying, and then also could you talk a little bit about some of the concerns you have or don't have, more in this case about campus, but less about classes and more just about climate and environment and obviously some of the interactions on campus and those kind of things.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amron Primrose. I'm a senior majoring in mathematics on the pre-med track with a minor in psychology. I'm originally from Newnan, Georgia, which is about 45 minutes south of Atlanta. But some of the climate, I feel like the climate is going to be very different. I feel like it's going to be half people being more cautious, aware, trying to stay away from people, and then the other half is going to be like, well, I mean, we're young anyway, so I don't feel like it'll affect us. So I think it's going to be a lot of people not really wanting to be around each other, but also the other side, people want to be around each other. I think some people are afraid of us coming back to school and then leaving halfway through. I think the climate is going to be divided into if people care or if people not care about certain things.
Great, thank you, Amron. Just to remind all the participants, please, if you have questions for our panel, put them in the Q&A box, not in the chat, so that we aren't just asking my questions, but we ask all y'all's questions and make this as interactive as possible. Amron, could you answer another question for me? So it seems, at least where I live, a lot of the wearing of masks and social distancing has become a political thing, right? Which seems a little bit strange, but it just has. Obviously, our students are not immune to that. There's a lot of tension. Being from Minneapolis, I've seen those tensions in my hometown. I see things overblowing. I see things boiling over, right? So students aren't going to be immune to that. Students have been in their communities, in their families now for, it's going to be 6 months before, students get back to campus. Are you worried that as a student, that there may be some tensions as far as being socially distant, people holding students accountable to that distance? Because I know Alabama has put some things out and been proactive about wearing masks and observing distancing. Are you worried that some of those tensions will boil over on campus? And what do you think UA could do to make you feel more comfortable if you don't?
I think some of the tension will boil over. I feel like Alabama may require certain spaces us to wear masks or us to be in a social distancing type situation. I think a lot of the students are going to be like, well, I really didn't do this at home, so why should I do this here? And they may say like, well, it's my right to not wear a mask. I think they will have a little bit of disagreement with UA administration when it comes to wearing masks or requiring to actually do social distancing. So I think the university, all they can do is make sure they enforce the rules, because I know in certain situations they may just be like, oh, well, you know, you feel maybe very tension, or you may feel uncomfortable wearing a mask, so you don't have to come in, or you don't have to wear a mask. And I feel like they should just enforce the rules on every platform, everywhere. And I also think they should explain, maybe like send out a mass email and explain why they are doing, like why they do certain rules, that we come back if we have to wear a mask or if we have to social distance. So I think I feel like there will be tensions, and I feel like it's just, we have to see how it goes.
Right. Really good. Shannon, same thing to you. Obviously, one of the best things Alabama did is Coach Saban, which everybody listens to, right? Listen to him more than the governor. Coach Saban and Big Al, right? They did a great PSA and a commercial where Coach Saban was wearing the mask and told Big Al, don't come near me unless you're wearing a mask. We want to have football. We want to have football, right? What other things, Shannon, could Alabama do to have you feel comfortable that your fellow students are going to observe all of the protocols that the CDC, the governor, whatever, are recommending?
A lot like she had said, like I feel like just explaining and being very transparent with us is one step towards like making me more comfortable. I'm more like when things are up in the air like they have been, and like even my superiors don't know answers to questions. It's kind of frustrating, and it's kind of like, okay, so like what am I supposed to do? But I feel like it's also very hard to make decisions now because we don't know what this is. We don't know what this is like. So it's kind of hard to say.
Okay, really good. Thank you, Shannon. So to our staff, because I think there's a lot of talk, one of the questions we have from Carol, who's a participant, there's been a lot of talk about the safety of our students, rightfully so, right? And there's a lot of talk about faculty as well. My guess is of the 136 people that are participating, most of us meet with students in a small little office or cubicle, very little air, 20 by 20 square, constant students coming in, coming out, advisors, success coaches, all of that. How safe do you feel returning to campus, Christine? And do you feel like your family, your health, the health of fellow staff are being considered? And if you were to say to a student in your office, look, you're not wearing a mask, I have 2 baby girls, you can't come in here without a mask on, I have some at the door, and the student says no, do you feel like you'd have support from the University of Akron in making that decision?
Great question. So right now, the university is sending out emails. Do you need a plexiglass for the front office? So in our office, when our students come in, they check in, and then they can go to the back office to meet with us one-on-one, again, in a very small room. So the university is asking staff if they want plexiglass covers. We as an individual office, we're getting gloves and masks, covers, and then we're also getting more, hand sanitizer, different things like that. But I'm also asking, above me, hey, are you guys going to provide that for us for individual departments? Because I don't think it needs to come out of our budget for that, right? So I think for the University of Akron, we're in a different point right now because we have new leadership. So the new leadership is deciding on a lot of other things right now. But as an office, thankfully, we are able to talk amongst ourselves. And because we have been able to work remotely, we are able to talk with each other and say, hey, look, maybe there's going to be some flex time. Some of us come into the office one days and then other days we're not in there. And then we're kind of going to have that flex time with each other because some of us are immunocompromised. So we don't want our staff to feel uncomfortable. As far as me being comfortable, and if a student is not wearing a mask and I offer them one, I don't know, Adam. That's a great question that I hadn't thought about. I don't know what I would do at that point in time. Maybe I would tell them, hey, let's take a walk across campus, so we're in an open area so that you and I are both safe. Because I do need to take care of myself and my children. So thank you for asking that. It's a great question. You put me on the spot. I don't know what the rest of the crew has to say about that one. But yes, I do think that we need to offer masks to students if they're coming on campus, because I'm gonna wear a mask, because it's not just about me, it's about others around me. So great
With
question.
your answer, the question was okay, the answer was even better, right? That's great. Leave it to an MSW to say, I'm going to take you out and take you on a walk.
Let's go outside and, you know, be in nature.
Wonderful. I mean, that's just a perfect answer, right? I'm still going to love on you, but
I'm still going to take care of you.
That's right.
That's taking care of me.
Yeah, really, really good. Daniel, how about you? Same question. You're meeting with students in small spaces, constant students that can't stay, right? That's what you and your team do. How comfortable do you feel that your team and a team like yours, student success teams, student support teams, student inclusion teams, are being considered? And what are some of the things that you're putting in place to make sure your crew is safe and well taken care of? Because it isn't just about them, it's about their families, right?
Yeah, thanks for the question. As far as my own personal safety, the things I know I can control, and that's really what I try to focus on, is am I wearing a mask? Do I have the cleaning supplies in my immediate space, or do I have the supplies and or masks for my staff? The answer is yes. And if the people above me, and I report to the dean of my college and everything, so I'm very fortunate in that. He is supportive, and he also comes back from a background that is from a public health, physical exercise kind of background. So for him, it's very important. And so I know the institution at Kent State is going to be purchasing those for the campus at large. For me, one of the things that I'm doing, regardless if it comes out of my budget or not, to me, that's now absolute spending, because if I'm not going to buy a T-shirt or some swag, well, then that swag, if anything, it's a face covering, to make sure that people can be like, all right, I'm still going to be cool, I'm going to do my thing, but I'm also going to protect you and me, you know, because I think oftentimes we have to get this culture shift. I think one of the challenges right now is everybody's like, if I'm okay, leave me alone, whatever. If I think this way, leave me alone, versus, well, if we're going to look at a culture of inclusion, we can't be that way. I have to be like, you know, Adam, you know, you're important to me because you're a human and because you're my brother. Like, so I'm going to make sure I do my part, you do your part. And I get people have choice. I get some people may not be able to physically wear a mask. And so to Rose, Christine, sorry, she's my sister. That's a really good thing, is to go into spaces or say, hey, all right, we'll meet in the parking lot. You know, if that's how we're going to do it. Well, it's raining. Well, here's an umbrella. You know, still going to do my thing. Or we can do it by what we've been doing this whole time anyway, by, you know, iPhone, or by video chat, or just by straight up old school, let's talk on the phone. You know, because that voice can be that comforting piece too, because a lot of us in this isolation time can feel alone. And sometimes hearing those voices, and especially seeing those faces, can help. But don't get me wrong, I was on campus yesterday, and I was and wearing a mask. I saw some other people they were doing their thing, and I was like, I want to hug you, like, because I just want to be able to feel that, because that's how I am. Couldn't do it. And you know what? In a year from now, we'll hug it up. So, and also I have a wife that works at the institution as well. And so, and we have a 2-year-old daughter. And so for us both going into spaces, we both are working for people that do value the bare necessities of respect, and saying, you know what, this mask is less about you or just about me. You know, it's a mutual thing. So I feel blessed in that. And I also know that some of the work I do, as many of the people up here, going into high schools, going into different spaces and community centers, where, because the people I serve and work with, they're not always in the ivory towers, right? And they're not always have the access to funds, and you know, so there's an equity issue, which we all know. And so things that I've been looking at is, how can I provide that to the people that I'm going to be serving to, regardless if they can or can't. So that's how I look at it right now.
Yeah, that's super awesome. I think one of the things we've all learned, you know, Allie and I both work remote. So this is my office, right, all the time. And you guys have finally, you know, when I have people who say you work from home, it's got to be great. Some days, right? But I also miss real people, right? And I miss interaction. And I don't have babies at home. It's just me and the boss, right? My wife. So I think one of the things that we've also learned, though, is that the bounds of space and time and social media and Zoom and Teams and WebEx and all these things, these are things that people can and should utilize. My wife is an academic advisor at the University of Tennessee. She ran her numbers, and her appointment show rate this spring is higher than it was last spring. So it could have something to do with students just wanting to interact with somebody, right? Because they're feeling as isolated too. But one of the questions that I hear a lot of higher ed pros asking is, you know, why can't we continue to work from home? If I'm in the office, why do I have to put myself at risk and have a face-to-face meeting when this has become the new face-to-face? We were very comfortable, and our bosses were very comfortable with people coming in the office, punching a clock 8 to 5. But the bounds of that have really, really changed, and quickly. Mary Virginia, how much, obviously being at NYU is a whole different thing. How much do you envision as a young professional, right, going to your supervisor and saying, you know what, I don't really want to come in the office. I've been doing my work from home. Can I continue to do that? Whether it's your current job, or let's say you're interviewing for another job as another institution, and you say, well, I don't really need to relocate to X city or X state, because I can continue to serve students from my living room and attend all the meetings and all the Zoom chats and all of that, and I can be safe and they can be safe.
Sure. Great question. First off, I'm going to give a shout out to my supervisor, because I've been very blessed in that she puts me as a human first and a specialist second. Not that our work is not important, but I think it's really important to find people that you work with that share your values and share you, and what am I trying to say here? Really share your well-being and want to have your health and wellness first and foremost. So I'm going to put that out there into the universe, because she's wonderful. But in terms of kind of what I could see that as, that's something that I think is being determined, because NYU is in the midst of Manhattan, but it's also kind of spread out everywhere. You know, there's the main cluster of buildings, which would kind of be like a quad in Washington Square Park, but we also have a campus in Brooklyn. And so, you know, are we going to be commuting back and forth between Brooklyn and Manhattan? You know, my office is in one building, but where I meet with students is in another building. So what does that look like in terms of safety? Right now, I think we're just going to try to be really flexible. I know that each day our president and the folks in enrollment management and deans are working. I know this morning we had a meeting and they were literally talking about what the fall is going to look like and what those standards might look like. But some things that we have discussed, nothing's set in stone yet, especially with commuting in. You know, I have to take public transportation to get to work, as do most of my colleagues. And so does that mean I work in the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and somebody else works from home Tuesday, Thursday? What does that look like? And then with our students, you know, as well, this has become, like you said, Adam, kind of normal. I don't really like the word normal. My mom always jokes that it's just a setting on the washing machine to begin with. I'll just say it's our reality right now. Yeah, Adam's like, that's a good one. Yeah, it's our reality right now. And so how do we take this to the next level so we're continuing to meet with students? So does that mean that we're extending technology services for our students moving forward in the fall? Does that mean that, you know, if we are in person but a student wants to be remote, can I still meet with them on Zoom, on Jabber, phone call, that kind of thing? So I think the name of the game is flexibility, and I have no doubt that enrollment management will do their part to do that, not just for the sake of our students, but also as our staff and faculty as well. So I personally feel very confident, and I know that they wouldn't do anything to put us in an awkward position. But I think in terms of what that might physically look like in terms of getting to work, students getting to campus, because a lot of students also live off campus. So if they're commuting from Upper Manhattan all the way down to Lower Manhattan, you know, even if they're wearing a mask and being safe, if you're on a crowded train, that can still, you know, potentially cause some unease, not just with physical health, but mental health. And I think that's also going to continue to be a conversation, is if we do continue to use this platform and meet with students this way, what do those mental check-ins look like, not just with our students, but also with one another, with faculty and staff?
That's really good. I love the idea, you know, tell Mama Ireland that I love that when normal's just a thing on the washing machine.
Well, it's true, you know.
No, it's awesome. Leave that to a pastor, right?
Yeah, I know. Well, this is our reality. I'll put it that way. You know, what it might look like, you know, for the next class. I know somebody had asked like that. I don't think anybody knows, but I think, you know, being flexible is key. And, you know, as Adam knows me, I'm the person that has to have everything written down on a sticky note. We will be meeting at this time to do this thing. And I have learned I can't do that. And there's a kind of a freedom that comes with that, even though it's kind of anxiety inducing. But I think, you know, more than ever, the possibilities are out there. And maybe this means that more people will have access to higher education that didn't before. So kind of trying to find that lens of how we can still bring education to people in a way that's physically and mentally safe and still kind of promotes the promise and mission and values of said institution.
When I think, to Mary Virginia's point, that's one thing we're missing, right? Is we're missing the role of higher ed as a thought leader, you know, and so many of us to be able to influence, you know, kind of the learning centered institution that we're all facilitating. And so maybe one of the challenges societally right now is because students aren't at school, right? And so if they're with us and we can plug into them and we can support them and we can educate them, one of the questions that Art threw up is that until there's an effective vaccine, we should all be able to work from home. That's true, but we also have 30+ million people unemployed. So the challenge is you're afraid, hey, if I start making demands, right, I may not have a job to return to. So one of the other questions that I know in Knoxville, where I live, the University of Tennessee has already rolled out their schedule for fall. Their plan, which I think is a really brilliant one, is to start classes August 16th. There are no breaks, so there's no fall break like we have in the South. There's no Labor Day off. The semester ends November 24th for face-to-face classes. Students go home for Thanksgiving and then take exams online. So it's a really cool way to try to condense everything down and not allow the breaks to facilitate large numbers of students leaving campus. Obviously, students live in the community, they can go home when they want, but it's really one of the interesting things. One of the things I wanted to talk to Jenna about with her role at Iowa is most institutions have done some things to change grading. They've allowed students to switch to credit, no credit, back again, back and forth. Jenna, how has that affected things at the University of Iowa? And I also want to ask our students about this as well. Are they afraid, because we have 2 pre-med students, are they afraid that this so-called watering down of their grades this semester is going to affect their prospects going on?
Thank you very much, Adam. So here at the University of Iowa, we did have the option to allow students to take pass-fail grades this past spring. It was kind of nice for the instructors. They didn't really have to know. It was all behind the scenes, the calculation. If the student opted in or opted out of pass-fail for a singular class or for all of their classes, that was something that they could do. And it was also something that they could, especially seniors, they were able to do that once past the semester ended, and there was an appeals process. So if they got a grade of a D+ and that's considered a fail under the pass-fail system, they were able to appeal that process, and so that they could have the D+ on their grade, on their transcript, which is then becomes a passing of the class, for example. We've also had some students who were seniors and they've taken incompletes in the spring, but they got the incomplete removed so they were able to take a class in the summer. The university has become very, very flexible in trying to explore options to help make sure that students, especially our graduating seniors, are able to get where they need to go with as minimal of, conflict as possible. I will say I haven't heard anything yet about grading systems for the fall semester yet, or even for this summer semester yet. I think there was a bit of an idea that students know, at least for summer, they know that they're going to be signing up for online courses, and all of our classes have gone online, and so students are aware of this grading process, and if they choose to participate this way, they know what's happening. For fall, we are still awaiting, the university's committed at this point to returning to face-to-face instruction in August, and so we are currently working on our classrooms and developing our plans for that. But to kind of go with that, we haven't heard yet about fall what we want to do for grading systems yet.
Right. Shannon, can you talk a little bit, because I know y'all were faced with that at Alabama, right? A lot of students were involved in some of the decision making too about switching to pass, fail, credit, no credit. How do you feel that will personally impact your, not only how graduate and medical schools look at your transcript, but next semester? Do you feel like your classes were a little bit easier? Do you feel like, oh, I'm worried that I'm going to take, let's just say Chem 3 rather than Chem 2? They kind of let me slide. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yes. Well, for me, we were kind of advised, like for pre-med, we were kind of advised not to choose pass-fail if we could help it for medical schools that may not accept pass-fails. Like there are some medical schools that are being more lenient now because of the pandemic, but we were advised not to, and my grades were well enough where I could not have to choose that option. But it just was kind of difficult for like some of those classes that require more hands-on, like for labs and stuff like that. It was kind of difficult to try to really get that learning without being able to touch and be in front of the different things, like for anatomy and things like that. But it was just an adjustment that had to be made, I guess.
Are you worried, Shannon, that the spring semester and then the melt from all this time since you've been in a face-to-face class, because at Alabama, it was like March 15th when you guys were last on campus. Are you worried that that's gonna, I mean, you're a rock star student, you're my student, so I can say it, right? Are you worried that that's gonna affect you academically, that your muscles are gonna atrophy a little bit?
Because I know a lot of people, truthfully, like a lot of people are getting kind of lazy, and it's just been easy kind of to be here and be at home and be online. And I feel like it can get sticky. It can get sticky, but I just hope that everyone, the students and the teachers, when we do get back to our regular routine, that everyone is just kind of motivated to get back on the bandwagon and figure it out.
Okay, great. Amron, what do you think? One of the questions that someone asked, there are a lot of services. Obviously, every campus has a lot of services for students: financial aid, counseling, health services, all of that. What services do you think are absolutely essential to have at Alabama face-to-face, for those offices to be open, for there to be somebody sitting there to be able to meet with them face-to-face? And what are some of the things that you could advise that could be online, whether it be for returning students or for incoming freshmen at the university in the fall?
Okay, that's a difficult question, but basically, I think counseling is something that is something important, definitely for students, and I think that's something that can be transitioned to online. But if it's in like a case of emergency, maybe in person will be best. I think also when it comes to financial aid, sometimes it's kind of difficult to communicate through phone, especially dealing with money and things as such. So I think UA kind of already has, like in the financial aid office in the back, has like glass that covers that separates each person in the area. So I think if they like maybe connect another glass part where somebody can speak through, I think that'd be maybe a good thing to do, because I think that's an important thing. Some classes are important to do face-to-face. I know when it comes to like theater classes, it's kind of hard to do that online. I know I spoke with one person, she said she had to basically drop out of her semester because she couldn't really do her classes online. So I think when it comes to certain majors, they have to be in person. I think how they can take precaution with that is just be more aware, and like if they are able to wear masks, then I think that'd be something that they should consider. If not, maybe some have the people that are needed on stage then can do it, and then the people that are not needed in that particular time, they could be behind stage, practicing social distancing. So I think certain areas of school, it's important, but I think certain areas, it can be transitioned to online, like counseling or the nutrition area of our school. So I hope that answered your question.
No, it was really good. I think the biggest thing is how we in the higher ed world as professionals define online. See, what was an online class a year ago is really different from what we're now calling virtual learning, right? Virtual doctor's appointments, virtual counseling sessions. This is virtual, right? An online class has modules that you complete, and maybe you watch a video, and that's really different. And so I think in higher ed, how we market our classes to students, because students say to us all the time, Allie and I with Doorway to College, right? Oh, I don't want to do SAT or ACT prep online, even though it isn't online, it's a live virtual space. So you're safe, I'm safe, we're meeting via Zoom. I can take you through a workshop and a seminar virtually that's very different than an online class, if that makes sense. Where almost like Domino's contact-free delivery, we can have contact-free classrooms that are virtual. Right? One of the questions that Tyrone asked is, Daniel, in the fall, would you consider yourself an essential worker?
I saw Ty's question, so thank you, Ty. Much love, brother. Hope you're doing well. There's two parts to the question. If I want to validate who I am and what I do, yeah, I'm an essential worker, because the institution can't function. There's my students, our students, the people I serve won't be served if I'm not doing it. In the essence of thinking of essential worker, though, I have to be honest and also be realistic that somebody who's an essential worker is somebody in healthcare, somebody in counseling, right? Somebody who's going to clean surfaces and things that, with equipment and or products that I can't and won't touch, right? So if I'm going to be honest about it, yes, I do think the work I do is essential. And also, if I'm going to be honest about it, there are people who are absolutely more essential than me.
Really good, really good. You could almost argue that our maintenance staff on campus are more essential than we are, right? Because they're having our back. Our medical centers on campus, we know what a sick factory a university campus is. I don't know if it's less or more sick than a preschool, but it's pretty doggone close, right? And so having the right training and the right support people is going to be that much more important to keeping, because I don't think about myself, I think about my grandbabies. I know Daniel thinks about his baby girl, that's just us. But I don't want to give it to my grandkids. I don't want to give it to my wife, my family, those kind of things. So keeping us safe is so important. One of the questions that Michael is asking, Christine, is his campus is going to will be online for fall and spring and summer. What are some of your suggestions, Christine, to building community, which is really, really important, especially with underrepresented minority students? What are some of the best ways to do that utilizing virtual settings and virtual platforms?
Great question. So the biggest thing for me is being honest and authentic with your students. So you just let them know, hey man, we're all trying to figure out the same way that you're trying to figure out, we're all trying to figure it out. So be honest with them. And then I just think just keeping traditions in general. So a great example is we, in my office right now, we have, not right now, but when our scholars graduate for their last thing that they do in the office, they come into the office, they ring a giant brass bell. Thank you, Adam Smith. They sign their name on the wall. We give them these cords, and it's just a great ceremony that our scholars do. Obviously, we couldn't do it right now because of the pandemic. So what my team and I did is we took the bell off its hinges and we went outside and we did a drive-by for our seniors. And we all, we wore masks and gloves and we did a drive-by bell ringing. So we kept the tradition alive. I think it's important for offices and teams and universities to keep that tradition, whatever tradition it is you have, and bring your students onto that, right? So right now for our freshmen, we have a orientation that we have with our scholars. So even though it's a virtual orientation that we're doing just like this, so we're gonna do a giant Google Meet or WebEx, or I don't even know what platform we're using, but we're just going to try and keep it as authentic and as honest as we can, keeping the traditions that we've had in the past, because it is going to be different in the fall. So, and knowing that there is going to be some flex time where some of us will be on campus and some of us will not be, but trying to be available for our students and keeping those same traditions that we've had in the past and continuing them with the new normal that we have now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I saw, not only was it a cool thing to do that y'all get snaps, and I love y'all for the tradition, but the thing that was cool is you also put it on social media.
Yes.
Instead of the students only signing the wall, which I stole from Coach Pat Summit here at Tennessee. She has a post, I remember at Akron, that people lost their mind and said, you're going to have them write actually on the wall? Yeah. Well, what's going to happen when the wall's full? Well, we hope we have that problem when we graduate that many students. Like a real Sharpie, well, it's their wall, y'all. They signed the wall at Alabama too, right? And so signing the wall is a great thing to show aspiration, to show that runway of success, but it also doing it on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and y'all had it on Instagram. It was just fantastic. And I think the students recognizing one of the biggest mistakes we're doing as adults, I guess, is not being transparent and honest with students. This is going to be normal. All we hear is we want to go back to normal. This is normal now. Okay, and all we have to do, the good people, the smart people, just adapt. You aren't going to Vietnam. We just celebrated 75 years since World War II. You aren't going to fight in Hiroshima or Nagasaki. You're not doing that, but this is the fight that we have. And our fight is based on flexibility, service to others, loving other people, being socially responsible, and adapting to what normal is now, rather than telling Shannon, oh yeah, we're gonna go back to normal this fall. This is what normal is now. So we have to help them with that, right? So Shannon, can you talk a little bit? Obviously, you're involved in a lot of things on campus, sorority life, you're involved in a bunch of stuff there at Alabama. Talk a little bit about how you're building community with your peers and what you wish Alabama would do more of in reaching out to you and making you feel like you're checked on and supported.
That's a hard question because I'm still figuring it out. But I think that just like y'all had touched on, like just really still being authentic with our interactions and like trying to make it as authentic as possible. Some people think it's like kind of doing too much, but I feel like it's kind of necessary in the climate that we're in. So just making sure that, like me personally, I'm making sure that I'm FaceTiming people and calling people and making sure that they are like still getting the information that they need to get, even though we're kind of farther apart. Like this social media was something we were trying to inch away from, kind of like trying to be more like, I don't want to say olden times because I don't want to sound like I'm a young person, but we were trying to inch away from being so distant, like so on social media, but that's just kind of what we have to do now. And it's just, it's I'm still figuring it out.
How are you connecting, obviously, with your sorority sisters, with your community, your people? in Tuscaloosa, because Alabama, we've talked about this before, is there's probably nothing like it but Arizona State, right? It's 60% non-resident students from up in New York City, a bunch of people in New York, New Jersey, where it's really hit hard, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and then California, right? And so you have sorority sisters all around the country. How are you staying connected and keeping that sisterhood? I know y'all Deltas are tough on that. So how are you keeping connected in that way?
We're constantly talking to each other, like Zoom meetings. We have Zoom meetings with each other. We have group FaceTime meetings. We have different group chats that we're in. We're currently doing, like, some of us are doing like a running challenge where we can all see the other people working out, and we're like doing this. We're just trying to be as connected as possible, even though it's really hard.
But see, all of those brilliant ideas are the things that us old people, like you said, can steal, right? I mean, we can do, everybody wants to be DJ Nice right now, right? And host their IG Live and DJ now. Everybody dusting off those DJ records. I know Daniel's trying to do that. So next question, one of the things I want to talk about, and we have Avis Brown on here, whose background is in mathematics, and works with scholarship recipients at the University of Akron. Recently, a lot of schools have said, we're not going to consider test score anymore for admission. So ACT, SAT, those scores don't matter as far as getting into UCLA, which was the high profile, UCSB, UC whatever. Avis, talk a little bit about the question, do test scores still matter for students? As a math major, as an administrator in higher ed who awards millions of dollars in scholarships, talk a little bit about, do test scores still matter, and how and why?
Yeah, give me a really hard question there. Yeah, the test scores do matter. I think one of the challenges, I think it demonstrates some of the business side of higher education, right? So we drop ACT scores, SAT scores to allow students to come in because we're thinking about enrollment numbers. But what it does is create an opportunity for students to be admitted. I think the challenge behind it is we don't also tell the truth behind that as well. So we can allow more students, especially those underrepresented, to enter institutions and be granted that, afforded that opportunity they didn't expect in the beginning. But at the same time, not knowing that they're going to be behind, they may potentially be behind in their prospective major. So if you're dropping the ACT scores, but my mathematics score is below 21, who's going to address the fact that I'm going to struggle through my calc classes or getting into pre-calc or calc at all? So I think it opens up doors, but at the same time, it sets students up for failure. And I think it also sets families up for an expectation for their students that they don't that they weren't considering, because you have these online classes that you're doing now. Just talking about the grade changes at institutions, so you're able to change back and forth, get credit, not get credit. I think that'll create an issue down the road, especially with certain schools. For instance, you talk about med schools that may use that as an opportunity to keep students out because there'll be those non-credit courses that they don't want to accept. But then at the same time, it'll allow other places to let more students in. So I think we'll have both of those options. But I think it's a great that we're dropping the ACT scores in one sense, or the SAT scores in one sense. But I also think if we don't do it with accountability, it can be very harmful because you're going to have more students starting the process, not understanding I'm behind, or families understanding that I'm behind. Well, normally you wouldn't have been admitted, or you would have been admitted to this campus, or maybe they still will do that with admitting to those particular campuses, but still won't tell the student that, hey, your particular score shows that you need work, and we need to put you in a position to be successful. So I think it'll give students a false hope or a false idea of a false reality, and at the same time not help them be prepared and allow professionals to not prepare students, because then we kind of just get in the groove, right? We don't think about those things because students are in, and once everything starts to clear up, right, more students are starting to enter institutions, and now we have enrollment numbers, and it's just we're just rolling fast pace, and it's, oh, well, we got to deal with the students, not knowing that now we have a retention issue that we're going to go back to, which is the piece that I think we're missing with all of it. Let's get them in, let's keep them, but how are we going to retain them? And I don't think we are addressing the retaining issue.
Well, and Avis, I think I haven't heard, and I don't know if you've heard, I've heard schools say highly public, politically, you know, the business model, I get it. When institutions are losing money, we're not going to consider test score for admission. I've yet to hear a school say, we're not going to consider test score for scholarship, right? So then you have students like me who are first generation who say, well, that 21's fine. I got into UCLA with a 3.8. So I'm going to go to UCLA, but now my time to degree is 3x. And if I would have retaken the ACT 2 more times, right, and gotten a better super score, I maybe could have gotten a little scholarship, not knowing there's only 12 semesters. Talk a little bit about how ACT and SAT scores impact placement, especially for STEM majors.
It's really big. One of the things we do, one of our flagship programs, you know, is a STEM scholarship program. And one of the reasons we've been successful in the program is because we always address that. The number one, prior to other areas on our campus looking at those scores, we always look at the math score because it tells a lot. Regardless of who the student is, their background, that math score can tell you a lot. And I think if we don't pay attention to that placement, students are placed in the wrong course. So one of the things we have to deal with is, so if I'm coming in and I have a 16 and if I'm an engineering major and I have to start off in basic math or something like that, well, that adds years to my programming, to the process. And so telling the student I'm admitted, but then not telling the student, well, you're admitted, but your score is lower than what's expected. You don't have scholarships. And now trying to deal with that, I think it's going to cause even more anxiety for our students, right? So they're trying to deal with the changes and the challenges of being on a campus and being able to switch back and forth between online and face-to-face, limited spacing and things like that. And then now all of a sudden we're in this process of taking coursework that you didn't know you weren't prepared for, because everybody's still telling you you're prepared. And those scores matter. They really matter. Maybe not in all giving people an opportunity, but it really matters for the placement. You can tell a lot and better prepare a student and put them in a situation where they can be successful once you know what they're walking into. For instance, the new program that we're starting, that's one of the main things we look at. I know what majors you have a shot at. You know, if you are a Black or Latino student and you have a 18 or to 22 on math ACT, I know that you have a shot, but I know it's going to take some work. If you have a 26 or higher, I know you're pretty much going to be able to do the work. There's going to be some other challenges, but we'll get there. If it's a white student that has a 26 on the math ACT score, well, depending on what high school you're coming from, it depends on how you got that math and what happens when you struggle in that calc course. And so these are the things that we're seeing with students, but we're able to address because we know that those issues are there. And I think if we don't address those scores, we miss it.
Davis, last thing. What are the ACT math subscores? ACT is what you know in Ohio. What are the math subscores that a student needs to place into calculus? Because you use that for placement, right? In math, right. Calc, pre-calc. Tell everybody what those subscores are.
I think for University of Akron, it's 27 or 28 places them to start off in Calc 1. I believe 26 puts them in pre-calc, and then 22 to 24 places them in algebra for calc. Below that, they have to take the placement test to see if they're placed in algebra for calc, which used to be college algebra or a lower math.
Right. So that's and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Avis on, y'all, is that we want to, at Doorway to College, bring things to the forefront. We want students not just to get to college and start paying a bill, right? We want them to get through college. And when we see this national trend, and it always hits our communities that we serve, my Trio family, oh, you know, we have these kids and now it's so great they're not going to consider test score. But the challenge is an engineering program is 6 years already. We only have 12 semesters of Pell. So if you start in college algebra or pre-calc, I think pre-calc is a 24 sub-score in the ACT. The average overall test score for an African-American in this country is a 16 and a half. A Latino about 17. So the realities are those test scores still mean a lot in getting through college, in particular in programs where students can be the most impactful, have the biggest job opportunity, be able to pay student loan debt back, those STEM degrees, right? Last thing we're going to do is we have a great question for our students. Shannon, can you talk about incoming freshmen? What is the one tip that you have for incoming freshmen coming in, whether it's the University of Alabama or anywhere they go? What is the biggest piece of advice you could give them?
That's a hard one. I would say from a pre-med standpoint, maybe just getting an advisor that really cares about you. Because sometimes advisors can make you add on a year or make you behind on something just because they don't know any better, or they don't know your situation, kind of, maybe. That's what I would say.
Really good, really good. Amron, how about you? What is the biggest advice you can give? This freshman class has not been in school since March. They're going to have a lot of time off. They're coming to Roll Tide land. What is the biggest advice that you can give to them coming in?
I would say do research on the school, especially during this pandemic. See how they reacted. If they come to UA, see how they reacted, especially with the certain majors that we have, and see how the advisors reacted to the pandemic, how they help the students get through this semester. Also how the teachers, the professors help get through the semester. So I think research would be great. And then once they decide on the school, actually look into the classes that they may have to take, understand the requirement, the description of each class. I think that would be something that they should do, and just be prepared to work and grind.
Okay. Daniel, one tip for our current students who are trying to finish this school year. What's your biggest tip, your biggest coaching point to give them?
For high school graduating seniors, know that this is a moment and life is filled with lots of them, and so do the best you can right now with what you have and what you know. For our students, our college students, I think that's a similar message, but I think is the thing we have to do is to trust and believe. Shannon, I think, hit it on the head. Try to find a person who knows the system and you can trust and give and be vulnerable with, and even if they're not in your quote major or they're not assigned to you, sometimes that person will be somebody who's going to give you that tough love and that push to say, you know what, I see this in you. You don't yet, but I see it in you. So go be great. And so I think that is two things I would say right now as we go through this moment in time, when there will be many more. And the thing is, when we get through this, when we look back and be like, I'm better for that.
And being better for it, I don't want to get too preachy, but all things don't work for your good unless you put the best construction on them. You're better for it if you choose to be, and you choose to be faithful, and you choose to make connections, and you choose to reach out with people. I think Shannon's a great example. Shannon, I was not her advisor. She just showed up one day and was like, hey, I heard about you, and hey, talk to me about XYZ. Shannon is still my student. I live in Tennessee. Shannon lives, she isn't even at Tuscaloosa anymore. So it's so important for students, right? And for us to find our people and to connect to each other and to have those communities. Now we know, these are all our people, and we don't have to be in the same room, but we all love and support each other. Jenna, one tip for our current college students as they come back to Iowa this fall, what's the biggest tip? And then I'll let Allie wrap her up.
I can't emphasize enough just how important it's going to be to take initiative. You have to reach out to your professors. You have to reach out to your academic advisors. You have to reach out to that weird email that's on the registrar's website that you've never contacted before in your life, and you don't even know what a registrar's office is. You have to talk to people. I think that it's going to be really easy to kind of get lost in the midst of all of this. And, we're going to do everything we can to keep up with you, and we're going to reach out to you as much as we can. But if you're struggling in a class and somebody's going too fast in the classroom, tell your professor. If you don't know how to switch to a different class or change your major, talk to your advisor. If you can't get into a class that normally you should be in as a third-year student because it's full and they're not going to offer another section of it, talk to your advisor. You just can't, you're going to have to be the one to seek it out. And a lot of initiative is going to be needed here. And as Christine was saying, we will be super transparent with you. We will tell you when we don't know the answer to something. I think that's really important for us. But we will be there on that journey to help you find that answer.
Good stuff. Good stuff, Jenna. Yeah, snaps for Jenna. I love MV's snaps. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to the panelists, and thanks to the attendees. On behalf of Doorway to College, I just want to thank everyone for attending today's final inaugural forum series that we put on. We're ending this conversation that sort of came out of the COVID-19 crisis, but we are planning an Educators in Unison virtual forum series that will be kicking off on June 18th. Information about that will be on our website, doorwaytocollege.com, very soon. And you'll be getting a follow-up email from my email address, so expect to see that as well. If you have any questions, feel free to utilize my email address. There'll be contact information in that email that you get as well. So it's just one email, no worries. Thanks again. Have a great one, everyone. Bye.